Hi again guys, and so we've got another Special Projects replica build for you today, and this time we're replicating a slightly newer vehicle based on an older shaped vehicle featured on the game currently, and the vehicle that we are using to build this replica is of course the Boss 302 Mustang, the premium model, and the car that we're replicating is the new shape GT350R Mustang. One of the fastest performance Mustangs ever to come from Ford, and a significantly quicker car than pretty much any of the Mustangs that we currently have on the game. It has less power than the GT500, but it's kind of a superior performance vehicle due to the newer technology. Now, I have made some visual changes, and although I could run through them fairly easily, we will go over to the visual tuning garage anyway. Then we'll go over, of course, to the mechanical garage for the setup, and finally out to a racetrack to see if this car is a good representation of what that newer model could feel like were it on GT6. Now, as far as bodywork on this particular model, I've gone for the Type B kit, which of course adds a significantly larger carbon fibre style chin splitter and side skirts primarily. I have opted to fit the flat floor on this one for two primary reasons. One is to beef up the look of the car, and the second is of course to improve the handling. There is kind of a side effect of that. It's not necessarily a bad one, but it does of course increase your PP. So if you do want essentially the same car but with a lower PP, you could just leave that standard. As far as the rear wing, I've gone for the special wing, and there is only one special wing, so it's not difficult to find. And as far as the rims, the actual GT350R seems to be available with a few different rim options. I've opted for 7-spoke rims. They're PD Originals GTAB07s, and I've gone for those, as you could see, in the standard colour. And as far as the colour of the car, I've painted the rims black, and of course there are a wide variety of blacks to choose from on the game. And for the body itself, I've actually left it the blue that comes from the car in the factory. So it's a very easy blue to find, and it comes in a strong variety of colours anyway. Of course, you can change the colour. The GT350R is available in more than one colour, so basically just go for whatever you want. And overall, that's it for the visual look. So now, of course, let's go to the second stage, which is the mechanical setup. Now, the PP on this particular model isn't quite as rounded off as I would usually like, 555 PP, but a couple of my other recent tunes, such as, I think the Ferrari F430 Challenge, if I remember correctly, was also that same PP. So you can work around that if you do need to use it for, say, 550 PP, reduce a little bit of power, a little bit of weight, of course, well, increase weight actually, not decrease it, or just remove the flat floor completely, of course. Now, I've gone for sport soft tyres because it is obviously a street spec vehicle. We've left the brakes stock for that same reason. As far as suspension, we've got the ride height on 95 on the front, 90 on the rear, and the reason why I've done that is because this car naturally sits in kind of a hot rod stance with the front lower than the back, and the GT350R just doesn't have that. It's a fairly even ride height front to back, so that's why we have evened that out. As far as springs, we've increased them to 7 on the front, 750 on the rear. The dampers to 4. Anti-roll I've left on 3. I'm running no camber, no toe, as I often do. We'll come back to the gearbox in just a second. Likewise with the brakes and also the tyres to some degree. We've left the clutch, flywheel and prop shaft stock. As far as the diff, I've opted for halfway on initial torque to stiffen up the steering. You could go higher or lower, of course, to change it to suit your personal needs and driving style. Acceleration and braking I've got set pretty low as possible in fact, on 5. As far as power, we do have an oil change on this one. Then to get the real power of the actual GT350R, I've got a stage 1 engine tune and exhaust manifold along with the intake tuning, and then reduce the power down to 526 horsepower. I'm running the maximum downforce, which still isn't all that much, and as far as weight, you don't have to do window weight reduction. I just did that to fractionally improve the weight distribution, but what you actually need to do is increase the weight to 1656 kilos. That's the weight that's quoted from Ford themselves, and then I've put that all the way to the back. It doesn't actually change the distribution that much, but I opted to do that anyway. As far as finally the gearbox, we are running, according to the research I found, the actual ratios of the real car, which is an auto setting of 217. You don't need a flip for this one. Then for individual gears you want 3657, 2430, 1686, 1315, 1 and 650, with a final drive of 355. And as you can see, that's actually a fairly long ratio gearbox, especially in 5th and 6th gear. So that's it overall for the replica of the car. Now let's take it out to Laguna Seca to see if this gives off the kind of driving style and performance that you'd want from the car. Now obviously, of course, even though we have made all of the necessary visual changes to get as close as we can get to the GT350R of the newer shape, it still doesn't look that much like it, and there's nothing you can really do about that. It's just a completely different shape vehicle. But the performance that the car has does, I think, feel authentic to what the vehicle could feel like. If you do feel that the handling is a little too good, a little too grippy, then you could of course remove the flat floor. But overall, it's a very grippy car. The steering has some weight to it, which is appropriate for a vehicle that weighs around 1650 kilos, and it's a good performance car all round. So if you do of course decide to use this replica, obviously first and foremost I hope you find it fun, but potentially even useful in racing as well. And if you'd like to keep up with other replicas and also custom builds similar to this in the future, be sure to slap subscribe down below for that to see those as soon as they're released. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.